Drummond Island Dogman, chapters 30 through 32. Chapter 30. As the beast slowly came toward us, the problem we faced became more and more real. By following behind us, he'd placed himself in the return path to the side-by-side. We couldn't even run in the direction of the vehicle, because we would be running right toward the beast. Our only chance would be to run in the other direction, but even then I knew that we'd never be able to outpace the animal. But is that what he is, I wonder? Is he an animal or a human? Both? Is he some sort of weird hybrid werewolf? I had no idea. The stories and legends I'd heard about Dogman never really gave an indication as to where he'd come from or how he came to be. My head snapped around. About 20 feet away was a maple tree. Thick branches grew low to the ground. It was our only chance. "Come on," I yelled, and it was my turn to squeeze Delaney's hand. I pulled her for a moment and then released her hand as we both started to run. "The tree!" I shouted as we sprinted. "We've got to climb the tree. It's the only chance we have." I never turned around to see how fast the creature was moving. I didn't dare. That would waste valuable time we needed to get to the tree. Every second counted. Every moment mattered. We reached the trunk and I spun quickly and grabbed Delaney around the waist, using every ounce of strength I had to help her up to the first branch. She grabbed the limb with both hands and I let go, and then I grabbed the same branch. "Pull!" I shouted. "Climb as fast as you can." Behind us, I heard branches snap and twigs break. Like monkeys, our arms and legs wrapped around branches as we frantically hoisted ourselves higher and higher into the tree, farther and farther from the ground and the attacking beast. A loud snarl came from below, much closer than I'd expected. I waited to feel the sharp claws dig into my leg to yank me from the tree and pull me to the ground, but the pain never came. I continued to climb. Delaney was a branch ahead of me, higher up. At least one of us won't get eaten, I thought. There was another snarl from below, this time louder and angrier. When I did manage to look down, I saw the creature on his hind legs reaching up with powerful arms or paws or whatever they were. They looked like both. One thing I was sure happy to see, he couldn't climb. He tried, but it didn't seem like he was able to get a hold of any branches, at least not enough to give him enough grip to pull himself up. "Keep climbing," I shouted. "Is he coming up the tree?" Delaney shouted back. "No, he can't get hold of the branches," I replied, "but keep going." We climbed a few more branches, a few more feet. Finally, I paused and looked down. Dogman, because that's what he was, I knew that for sure, was at the base of the tree directly below us. He'd given up trying to climb. He stood on his hind legs, reaching up with his hairy paws as if to catch us. Oh man, I thought, I hope these branches don't break. If a branch breaks and one of us falls, I didn't want to think about it. "What do we do now?" Delaney asked. "There's nothing we can do," I said. "We're just going to have to wait. We're safe in the tree as long as we don't fall." "But how long are we going to have to wait?" asked Delaney. "However long it takes," I replied. "Like I said, there's nothing else we can do." So that's what we did. We waited. We held the branches and remained where we were, 20 feet off the ground. We were alive, and at least for the time being, that was all that mattered. Chapter 31. Time seemed to drag on and on. 10 minutes seemed like an hour. Beneath us, the half-man, half-dog creature had given up attempting to climb the tree. Instead, he simply stood near the trunk on his hind legs, looking up, waiting for one of us to fall into his arms, like an overripe fruit dropping from a branch. "I wonder how long he's going to stay down there," Delaney said. "We can't stay up here forever. Sooner or later, someone is going to come looking for us." And that was another thing that worried me. Delaney was right. If we were forced to stay in the tree all day, someone, my dad, Delaney's parents, maybe the police too, would come searching for us. If Dogman was still hanging around, that would put other people at risk. "I bet he goes away on his own," I said hopefully. "He's going to realize we aren't coming down and he'll go find something else to eat." "That's comforting," Delaney said. "Well, I don't know what he's going to do, but I do know that nobody on the island has been eaten by him. That would be big news, and it's never happened." "Maybe he just got here," Delaney said. "Maybe there's a Mrs. Dogman and little dog kid somewhere vacationing on the island. Maybe they sent him out to bring back dinner." I nearly laughed out loud. Delaney was being funny at a moment that wasn't very funny at all, and I think we both needed the humor. Our lives were at stake, and Delaney's lighthearted joke was a nice break from the serious, heavy tension. "I don't know how long he's been on the island," I said. "The only Dogman stories I've heard about are from the Lower Peninsula." "But maybe there's more than one creature," Delaney mused. Maybe there's a bunch of them roaming the woods. Maybe they just stay out of sight and keep to themselves because they're too smart to get caught. That was a possibility too. Up until that week, I'd never considered any of the Dogman stories I'd heard to be anything but fiction. But now that we were seeing one, a real live Dogman, up close and very personal, my ideas about those stories changed. Dogman was very, very real, and the proof was only 20 feet below us. Finally, unbelievably, Dogman began to look disinterested. He began glancing in different directions, looking around the forest. His focus was shifting, and he wasn't so concentrated on the two of us in the tree. Suddenly, Dogman dropped to all fours. This was the first time he'd done this since he'd forced us up into the tree. With a loud snarl and a deep, guttural howl, he took off running, crashing through the woods, snapping twigs and branches, until those sounds faded completely. Dogman was gone, or at the very least he'd left us alone. It took us a long time to get up the nerve to climb down the tree. We waited a full 15 minutes to make sure the hairy beast didn't return. When we didn't hear or see any more sign of him, Delaney and I slowly descended to the ground, ready at a moment's notice to climb back up if Dogman appeared again. All we need to do is make it to the side-by-side, I said. I eyed the forest suspiciously, scanning for any sign of the creature. If we can make it back to the machine, we'll be home free. And if we don't make it back to the side-by-side, Delaney asked. We will, I said, dodging her question. I promise. Which was really a silly thing to do. Promise something that I wasn't sure I could make good on. But I wasn't going to stand there and consider the options. The only thing I was sure of at the moment was that we were wasting time just standing there at the trunk of the tree. Follow me, I said. We'll run back to the side-by-side. It shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes. I started running through the forest, and Delaney followed closely behind. Every few seconds, I snapped my head around to make sure she was keeping up, but I was also looking behind us to make sure Dogman wasn't on our tail. I didn't know what we would do if he was, but if he was chasing us again, maybe we'd be able to climb up a tree again and get away from him. That would be our only strategy, as there was no way we'd be able to outrun him. And certainly there was no way we'd be able to fight him off. I think 10 grown men would not be able to win a battle with Dogman. It was a huge relief when the side-by-side came into view through the branches up ahead. Almost there, I shouted. In 10 seconds, we were on the ORV. I leapt into the seat and quickly put on my helmet and seatbelt. Delaney slipped into the seat next to me, and by the time she'd belted herself in and put on her helmet, I'd started the machine, put it into gear, and was roaring down the trail headed for home. All we'd have to do is make it out of the forest, and we'd be safe. But it wasn't going to be that simple. Chapter 32. We tore down the trail in the side-by-side, spewing a cyclone of leaves behind us. Every second that ticked by made me more and more relieved. It wouldn't be long, and we'd be out of the forest. I wasn't sure what we'd do then, but the most important thing of all would be that we were safe. We were alive. Of course, we'd have to go to the police. That would most likely be one of the first things we'd do. I didn't know what would happen after that, but no one on Drummond Island was safe. Not as long as that hairy monster was running around in the woods. Nobody's going to believe us, Delaney shouted over the roaring engine. Yes, they will, I shouted back. You and I were both there. We have the same story. And besides, it won't be long before that thing makes another appearance. Someone else will see him too. Let's just hope people believe us before it's too late, Delaney said. Before that thing. Delaney's sentence was cut short by her scream, and I slammed on the brakes. Ahead of us on the trail stood Dogman. He was on his hind legs, leering at us, his mouth open, fangs exposed, tongue lolling to one side. And he was enormous, gigantic. On his hind legs, he must have stood 7 feet tall. We sat in the idling machine, hearts pounding. Neither Delaney nor I said a word. We didn't move. The two of us stared at the beast while he stared at us. Finally, I spoke. Okay, I said quietly. Hang on tight. What are you going to do? Delaney asked. Just hang on and don't let go. Your seatbelt will keep you in, but you'll need to grab the bar to keep from being tossed around. Are you ready? With her right hand, Delaney grabbed the roll bar above her head. Yes, but what? Without waiting for Delaney to finish her sentence, I slammed my right foot into the accelerator. The machine lunged forward, spewing dirt and leaves and debris behind us as I steered the side-by-side directly at the beast on the trail.